South game is what it's most commonly referred to around here. And really looking forward to this. You'll be able to listen to it live on the Chief Sports app, as you can listen to Sports Talk live every day on the Chief Sports app at 6 o'clock. And this is a full circle moment. One of the leading voices in the history of sports in this state, Phil Kornblut, who we all look up to, has been kind enough to join us to preview the game tomorrow and talk a little bit about it. Phil, I'm glad to see you. Phil, if you'll unmute him for us here. Man, we're glad to see you. Glad to have you and appreciate you making some time for us.
Unmute yourself there, Phil.
Yeah, gotcha.
There we are. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, it's good to see everybody. And gosh, you embarrassed me with those kind of words because I am nowhere near that level. But just happy to be here and happy to be involved with the All-Star game once again. I think in one way or another, been involved with this All-Star game since the 1980s. I was asking Don Williams, the godfather of sports talk, the other day, when did we start doing this game? Because I remember working behind the scenes, and he was the play-by-play guy. He really couldn't remember, but it was back in the 1980s, I believe. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to see it grow, find a steady home in Myrtle Beach, and now with Scott Early taking over as the executive director of the South Carolina Athletic Coaches Association, I think you're going to see a lot of development with this game. Maybe something with the Shrine Bowl in the near future. That would be kind of cool. And just continued growth. So we're just very excited about what these guys are doing.
That's really interesting, Phil. You know, nobody's more tied into all this than you are. And JC mentioned it earlier. You know, the Shrine Bowl has kind of had some hiccups. And, this state loves high school football, as we all know. And there's so many neat small towns that's their thing. And there's other towns that, I wouldn't call it their thing, but they certainly love it, and they're trying to kind of restructure it and get it going again. And I felt for a while like, there probably needs to be a little bit more of an emphasis on getting these things together somehow and making it a big deal. So so you're telling us that we've got some good stuff maybe to look forward to here in the near future.
I think so. I think some things are in the works right now. The Shrine Bowl has struggled financially. And in other ways, it's still a great game. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they do get the first pick of the players in the state every year. And I think the idea, the concept of a South Carolina versus North Carolina thing is still really good. And they just had some management issues. I'm not privy to all the details, to be honest with you, but sure. I think that they could use some fresh ideas, some outside leadership. And the Shriners themselves have tried to run that game for all these years. And for them, it has been just like a celebration and a big party, the culmination of their national fund drive for supporting their children's hospitals, which we all know is a great, great cause. And they do great work with that. But I think sometimes fresh eyes, outside ideas, a new concept can be good. So we'll see what happens. Myrtle Beach, of course, is a destination town. It's a place that has opened its arms to these kind of events. They've got the lodging, they've got the restaurants, they've got the entertainment. I'll tell you, the kids that play in this game, they have a great time. Now, they've shortened the week. It used to be players would arrive on Sunday, practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a little bit on Friday, play the game on Saturday. Coming out of COVID, they shortened the week where players arrive on Tuesday, practice. They only have really Wednesday, Thursday, practice a little bit this morning, then a walkthrough this afternoon. So there's not a lot of practice involved. So, but they feed them well. They entertain them. Last night, the players went to Top Golf and hit golf balls for a couple of hours. At the same time, they had a big sponsors dinner in downtown Myrtle Beach, where I saw a bunch of people. Coaches were there. So they've got something planned for the kids every night. And so I think if something were to happen, Shrine Bowl and this game were to come together in some fashion, move everything down here to the beach, I think you'd see a week-long celebration of high school football in South Carolina like you've never seen before.
Man, that would be awesome. I've got to interrupt all this because our man Bill Goss is in the Nana Sports chat box, and Bill said Phil was a PE Center legend basketball player. never met a shot he didn't like.
Oh, well, kettle calling the pot.
Old Billy G, man.
Oh, hey, let me tell you a story. Tell you a story about Billy G. Love Billy G. You know that. We all love him and his wife. But back in the day, in the 1990s, maybe 2000, early 2000s, we did a Saturday morning. We had a sponsorship with Billy G's on Sports Talk. This is when they first opened. They had Palmetto's down the street on Lincoln, and they had Billy G's on the corner of Lincoln and Gervais. So part of our deal was for Chuck Reedy and I to do a Saturday morning college football preview from Billy G's, but not just from Billy G's, on the street. So we would set up, and this was early in the days when the ability to broadcast through a single phone line with really good quality was just coming into vogue. So we were just getting this new equipment, this new Comrex equipment, kind of breaking it in. Still didn't work very well. But here, 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning in the Vista, imagine that. Here's Chuck Reedy and I setting up a table on the corner of Lincoln and Gervais. Billy lived upstairs above Billy G's. We'd have to throw rocks at his window to wake him up so we could get the phone lines up to his room up there so he could plug us in so we could do the show. And, first of all, nobody was listening. And second of city buses were turning right in front of us and just covering us with diesel smoke as they made the turn on the Lincoln Street. And this was in all kind of weather, September nice, October, November not so nice. But it was a great experience. We enjoyed. Billy was great. Super. What a great job he did with Billy G's and that group. And of course now he's gone into the barbecue catering business where I think he's second to none.
Hey, you got that right. Here's a quick plug for him. CarolinaBarbecueSauce.com for anybody that wants to order the stocking stuffers this year, the Hall of Fame pack with 2 sauces and the seasoning. We're going to use the I'm calling it seasoning for the sake of that. The rub is really what it is. We're using the rub on some shrimp tomorrow.
I put it on everything.
We put it on broccoli and everything. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's interesting, and those are the days before the Vista was what it became.
Yeah, so, the Vista wasn't the Vista then.
it was not. Yeah, that wasn't really the Vista. It was more like just a crappy part of Columbia.
Hey, wake up, man!
It's I've been there. Hey, man, when Bobby Harton and I used to do Carolina Game Day, it started at 7 a.m. Down there at TLC Sports Bar, and you were like, "Is anybody really listening to this?" Yeah. Nobody's listening, right?
And we see a few remnants from Friday night roaming around the Vista when we got there. I'd get there 5:30 in the morning after doing the high school scoreboard the night before.
Yep.
I was pretty much in a walking coma most of those mornings. But it was great experience, and the best part was working with Chuck Reedy, who is fantastic, both as a coach and providing analysis on football. So that was a great learning experience for me.
Well, speaking of coaches, there's a lot of good ones in the North-South game this week, Phil. Good to see my guy Denny McDaniel in there on the South staff as well, and love Denny and what he's done. And
I met him last night. Funny you should mention him. This guy comes walking by with this huge beard. And I stopped him. I said, "Coach," I said, "what's your name?" And he said, "I'm Denny McDaniel, head coach at Stratford." I said, "Awesome, man. Awesome." And Ray Stackley, knew him for years. I said, "The beard. I mean, that thing is awesome." He said, "Yeah." He said, the wife likes it. And what did he say? I think I'm going to let it grow. Not going to cut it till I win a region championship or something like that,
Yeah, he's like he's one of those tweener coaches, who's got, because he was developed under Coach Hayes, under Bob, when I was at Wando, and so you've got that old school structure. Yeah, you remember Coach Hayes. He was, "Hey, how you doing?" Very structured, right? And then, but then Denny's got the swag to him, So, like, is that new era of kind of like Corey Helms at Cardinal Newman. He cuts the sleeves off, but he's got some of the old school in him, but he's the tough. Like, I take my sleeves off because it's cold, but it's just a mental block. Like, it's not cold. It's 20 degrees, but no, it's not cold. It's because you think it's cold. But then they've got that swag in him. Denny's one of those guys. It's a neat guy to play for.
My first time meeting him last night, he seems like a really cool guy. Yeah. And we reminisced for a few minutes about Ray Stackley, who I really admired as a coach. So sounds like he's going to do a really good job there. And it sounds like to me, with the turnover of high school coaches in that part of the state, they've got a lot of new, young, fresh head coaches with new ideas. And, with this era of football and how things have changed, I mean, you really kind of got to go in that direction in a lot of ways.
Hey, boy, you got that right. Wando's set to make a hire here very soon as well. This game tomorrow, what about the talent in this game? You've covered all these kids this year. I mean, I don't know that you could list every one on both rosters. That'd be tough to do. But the type of talent that anybody that goes to the game or that's listening tomorrow on the Chief Sports app at noon, what type of talent are they going to be seeing or listening to?
Yeah. I mean, it's good talent. This is not going to try to fool you. This isn't a game loaded with high major D1 players. I don't think there's very many players in this game who will go on to play college football. Most of them will be playing their final organized football game tomorrow. I mean, some will go on to mostly FCS or Division II level, those that do play at the next level. But it's good. It's still good football. We've had a number of changes on the roster this year because of injuries and illness. Some guys got sick when they first got here. They either came sick or they got sick. They had to go home. The South rosters had a pretty fair number of changes this week, and they didn't replace him. The only guy they replaced, well, they did bring in a big offensive lineman. This kid his last name is Sumter.
Dakari Sumter. I was going to ask you about him.
Yeah.
I saw that 6'7", 396. Is that real?
Was I covering my face just then? Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm not.
Is he really 6'7", 396 pounds?
Yeah,
he's close.
Well, actually, they list him at he checked in at, this is what they gave me, 6'7", 347. But he cast a shadow over everybody he stands next to. I mean, he's massive.
Okay.
And
maybe that's a typo then on the website, because they've got him at 396. I couldn't believe that, Phil. 346.
You could shed 56 during the season if you start 396 in August. Trust me, it's a lot of water weight, but you can get it off.
I guess if you're 6'7", carrying around 400 pounds, that's different from being
right. He spreads it out pretty well. He's massive. So that was one of the changes. They also had to bring in a center. Their center from the North team, who was from Gaffney, got hurt. So they had to bring in. They didn't have anybody else who could play center.
Oh.
So they had to go up and get a center from West Side, and they liked him because he was still in football shape, having just played for and winning a state championship last weekend. So they brought him in. One that caught my eye too was for the South. They had to replace their kicker because their kicker got hurt. Sam Crocker was their kicker, and they brought in a kid, last name Klein, from Chapin.
Okay.
And he caught my attention because he's going to Western Carolina to play golf. He's a +3. He's a +3. I said, "What's your handicap?" He said, "I'm a +3." I said, "I hate you already."
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you.
This guy probably hits it. He's about 5. Well, he said he's 6 feet. He's about 5'11". He probably hits it about 375 yards right down the middle. Man, if you're a +3, that's what you're doing.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah, what a jerk. Come on, man. You don't walk in at 18 years old and tell me you're a +3 handicap. That's not how we do things around here.
I know. Not in my world.
Yeah, no. Is there anybody that's on either one of these rosters? I know you mentioned a lot of them this will kind of be their swan song. It'll be an emotional day playing their last high school football game, but quite an honor to go out to at least. But is there anybody that maybe is on the verge of going to play some college football, or maybe this game could help them potentially do that's on your list of guys to keep an eye on?
Yeah, but by the way, let me correct something. The center that got hurt, he was from Gray Collegiate, JT Soul. He was from Gray Collegiate.
Okay.
So I want to get that right. Chase Bird, wide receiver, probably heard of him, out of Greer, going to Clemson as a preferred walk-on. He just got that done in the last week or so. So that would be one that has got, obviously, Clemson and people I've talked to kind of see him as a guy that can go there and play. He's 5'10", 173, can kind of play in that slot. Everybody, of course, when you go to Clemson, preferred walk-on in that position, they compare you to Hunter Renfrow, which is probably totally unfair.
Yeah.
But he's a good player. He's a good player. Let's see. Zy Offord from Gray Collegiate, I believe, is one who's moving on to the next level as well. Got to go back and go through my notes and check on some of these guys and where they may have committed to at this point. Again, it's not a game loaded with guys who'll play on the next level. Just good high school players getting a chance to play one more game in their high school careers and be out in front of the family and the friends. And what's really nice is all the head coaches of the players come in when they do the introductions prior to the game. The head coaches for each player on the field with them, along with their parents. So they do a really nice job of recognizing people in that way. So it's a good atmosphere. I expect tomorrow the weather is going to be terrific. I think we're talking about mid-60s, might even touch 70. So it's going to be that kind of day at the beach where people want to come on down, take in a little football, and then go enjoy yourself.
Zy Offord, that's Willie Offord's son, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Good player. Really good player.
Willie was a good player.
Bruce Knobler, Furman commit from Greenville, the loaded Greenville High School Red Raiders, who I still can't believe all these Greenville schools are loaded, because I left the state 15 years. I come back, Greenville County is the center of power.
So this is from I don't know if this
being
is
from Spartanburg. I'm like, that makes me mad.
I don't know, Kathy, if you're his mom or related to him or somehow, but we appreciate you certainly dropping his name in there. I'm glad you did that. That's good to keep an eye on.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that. But yeah, Greenville schools just are getting better and better, Phil. It just seems like the growth in that area, and I know Horry County's growing a lot too. I read that's probably the fastest. Myrtle Beach is the fastest growing town in the state. Moncks Corner is the second fastest.
Well, I was told last night by one of the coaches that when they get to realignment and all that and start get the next count of students, Carolina Forest might very well be the largest school in the state enrollment wise. Yeah, I think
Carolina
has
Forest.
Yeah. This is
it's right there where Waccamaw Pottery used to be. I don't know going into you probably never went into Myrtle Beach that way, but it's between Conway and the beach, and it used to not exist. It was Myrtle Beach, Socastee, Conway.
Yeah,
and they got it. Carolina Forest is like that whole area right there, heading toward Conway. Wow.
Yeah. So you can. I think Wando has been like the largest in the state. Wando or maybe Dorman at one time. But you're right. This area it's exploding. Obviously, a lot of retirees are moving down here. I don't know, who's bringing kids with them like that, but there's a lot of retirees moving in down this way. Present company excluded from that, by the way. Not there. Might look it, might sound it, might act like it, but ain't there yet.
You burn up the road too much, Phil, to be considered anything near a retiree, man.
Phil, I've always wanted to ask you, how many Phil Kornbluts are there? Because I can't figure out how you cover every corner of everything.
Well, look,
there's only one Phil.
It's always been my belief. I was hired by Don Williams at the network in 1984. And my job was to cover Clemson because Don was with the Gamecocks. We had the Gamecocks for 12 years on our network. And so Don was with the Gamecocks. I was hired to do sportscast and cover recruiting and cover Clemson. So I was up at Clemson every week, sometimes 2 times a week, sometimes 3 if they had something going on. So our belief then and my belief still today is cover things. If I ever reach the point where I don't want to cover things, then I will, hang it up. I believe in going to games. I believe in covering teams. I believe you learn more about players and coaches by being there in person and actually seeing expressions and seeing what happens behind the scenes. So that's always kind of been my driving influence. So yeah, up and down. I was thinking the other day, beginning of this football season, because it's 40 years of sports talk, 40 years of being in the business, that I've probably made over 800 trips to Clemson from Columbia. Well, I figure about 20 between football press conferences, games, basketball games, other press conferences, baseball games, about 20 times a year. So,
you probably started going up there, Phil, before they built the bypass, right? Like the Southern Connector.
I'm not. Yeah. Hey, listen, man. I ain't paying $6 for that needless shortcut. All right, $12 each way. You're out of your mind.
Hey, my mother lives out toward there. She feels the same way. I mean, it's not. But yeah, so wow. So you don't take it anyway.
I'm a 385. I'm a 385 to 85. Now that they have made that a very smooth interchange, I'm a 385 to 85 guy.
Yeah, they've fixed it finally. Just don't get off on Woodruff Road, whatever you do.
No, that's awful. You're right.
And I'll tell you this to our audience out there, some of you that may not have been around for a long time. There would be no J.C. Sherbert if there weren't a Phil Kornblut.
Yeah,
and
that's a scary thought.
That's the truth. That's the truth, though, because how I learned about like my passion for recruiting was listening to Phil's recruiting report every night. There was no internet.
Yep.
In Spartanburg, I had to take a coat hanger and touch the AM radio to get sports talk on SPA because there's no Gamecock coverage up there at all. Because whatever the Clemson station was drowned everybody out, and you were forced to listen to the Tiger Tailgate show because the Gamecocks were on this AM station or whatever. But I always try to catch it, and man, it just got you fired up, and it connected. It connected me to the sport longer than just the season. And I think a lot of people, when I look back that love recruiting and that have gotten into the business, owe you a debt of gratitude, Phil. I mean, I've had a long career.
Thank you. I don't know. Well, thank you. I don't claim any responsibility for the crazy thing about recruiting coverage and all that. I'm just barely hanging on, man, because the websites, as you well know, the websites own that side of things. Now, I fell into it accidentally, sort of, when I was an intern at WIS Radio, and Bill Wagey was my boss, and he started to make a call here, a call there about a high school player here or there. I remember one of my first assignments with him when I was an intern was to check on this lineman out of Charlotte that South Carolina was recruiting. He ended up going to LSU, I believe. So, it was just a little bit here, a little bit there. It hit me that it was for real when I went to work in Greenville in about 1982 and worked with a guy named Jeff Charles, the late Jeff Charles, who was Furman's play-by-play guy, Virginia Tech, and then East Carolina before his death. And but I was doing sportscasts up there, and I started adding recruiting information to my sportscasts. And all of a sudden, people started calling our station, asking for me. And I'm like, I was nobody. I mean, I'm still nobody, but I mean, I was really nobody that brought nothing to the table. And this guy, people would say, hey, did you say so-and-so? Have you heard? What have you heard? I'm like, these people are really interested in this stuff. And just started from there. And then when I got to the network in 84, they gave me the credit card. They make any phone call you need to make. Because back then, you had to make long distance. Remember long distance calls? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, man. And I mean, my phone bill was huge. But I made the calls. And we started doing the Sunday night recruiting show. Yeah.
After visits and
after visits.
And it's just, honestly, the website's, it's still a hub of information, obviously, probably because of the community, but recruiting's even changed since the website days, like the mid 2000s, when I think it was at its peak, because social media now tells you so much.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of misinformation out there. On top of that,
I'm part of that.
well, it's not necessarily you. I mean, everybody. I mean, it's like,
I don't know how you can't get it all right anymore.
These kids
man.
these days, they will straight up tell you, like, I mean, it's tough. And so, but I still think that, there's something to be said for good old fashioned reporting. I still think that, you still report with the best of them and stuff like that. And and I think a lot of times, as far as I'm concerned, the passion that I ended up developing for it, that was the root of it, because it never left me, after, the whole time I've ever been a college football fan. And they asked me in 2004 to come to Rivals and cover recruiting, and they didn't have to ask me twice. I was like, that's what I want to do. I didn't really want to be a high school beat writer or college beat writer. I don't think I'm cut out for that. Unlike you, Phil, I don't like press boxes. So I don't like the stands either anymore. Yeah. But it's been tremendous, and it's just fascinating to kind of learn where the roots of all that, all of us here now, where those roots grew from.
Yeah, well, back then it was just me and a handful of guys. Alan Wallace was doing super prep out in California. There were a couple of guys in Dallas who were doing some things. And there was a few other guys here or there. And we had our own little network of communication by phone back then. I'd call these guys every day, or they would call me. Hey, what do you got? What are you hearing? Here's what I've got. We shared everything because we're in different parts of the world. Alan Wallace with Super Prep was really about the first one, maybe Max Enfinger as well. They kind of nationalized it and tried to do an entire national coverage with their magazines and things like that. But it's changed so much. I don't know what a day for me would be like if I didn't make a recruiting call. It's just second nature. It's like breathing. It's just something that I've done every day for 40 something years. But I do want to say that with, insiders, see, I'm not an insider. I had to make a decision. I guess you could, maybe I was an insider before they called them insiders. I was one of those guys who had relationships with coaches on staffs. I used to, bleed them for everything I could get out of them for information, and I had good relationships. I mean, I could call Tommy West when he was the head coach at Clemson. I could call Tommy West and in his office, directly into his office, and I'd get the lowdown on every player they were recruiting, and then I would do my work. I'd follow up. Various coordinators at South Carolina, recruiting coordinators, same thing. So I had those relationships, but when I became the host of Sports Talk and realized that in my mind, I was in a position where I had to be fair in my evaluations and opinions, but sometimes that involves criticism. That involves not saying such nice things. Then I realized I had to cut off all of that because I'd be a hypocrite. In fact, I was a hypocrite for a while, and a coach called me out on it. And I said, you know what? You're right. How can I sit here and say something critical about you guys, your program, your team? On the other hand, you're feeding me information. So I had to cut that out years ago so that I am an outsider, but I have the freedom to say whatever I want to say. I'm not owing to anybody. Nobody's providing me with anything, so I don't owe anybody anything. So for me, that works. That works internally, and I hope it works as far as what we do on the show, because I hope people know that when I offer an opinion, it's not because I'm connected here. I'm not connected to anybody, and I'm not afraid to say it. I am not connected to anybody, and I prefer it that way. Anything I get in recruiting, if I'm not re-reporting what JC is reporting or the Gamecock Central or Tiger Illustrated, I believe in putting the information out there for people who read my site or listen to us. I'm not trying to be the guy that holds on to all the information. If somebody's got something, I'm going to report it and give them credit. But everything else that I get, has to come from the player or the player's coach. I just had to, I had to do that to be able to be a host of a show, free and clear of everything else in my mind.
I think that is incredibly fair, and you've done it this long. I think you've done it well enough over the years. I got a question for you here from somebody. They wanted you to name the greatest recruit that you've ever covered. Is it Clowney?
The greatest? How do you define great? Well, certainly
Yeah.
Clowney, Lattimore, Sidney Rice,
Stephen Davis.
You could ask that question a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe the most interesting recruit.
William Perry. I mean, think of all the Clemson guys that have come through. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, those guys. Again, the national guys as the recruiting landscape has changed and the coverage has changed. Me, I have no opportunity to quote unquote cover guys of that level anymore. They don't talk to people like me. I hardly ever get.
They don't talk to anybody, man.
Well, they definitely don't talk to me. Getting guys on the phone or to communicate with you now is that is probably the most difficult, aspect of it now is getting guys to talk to you because, they're cutting. I think my perception is they're cutting deals with the recruiting networks. Who's going to make your announcement? Whose show are you going to go on to do your announcement? And my guess is they're sort of like, hey, now you got to limit who you talk to. You got to preserve your information for us. We're going to be the ones to do your announcement. So we want to be the ones to have it. Makes it a little more difficult. But guys, there've been so many great players at all kind of different levels that we've covered over the years. I don't know that I could put Roscoe Crosby was unbelievable. Todd Ellis, the day that Todd Ellis announced.
Tell us the Todd Ellis story, because Keith Allsup's told me this many times about because Todd was the number one player. A lot of people had him number one overall.
Well, Todd, that saga was the one that convinced my bosses that there's this crazy group of fans out there, diehard, but highly vocal and highly emotional and highly involved group of fans who love recruiting, and it was worth the investment. So this would have been 85. After the 84 season, the Gamecocks were riding high. They had this quarterback on their board named Todd Ellis out of Greensboro Page. He was, one or two or three in the country among quarterbacks, and South Carolina was in the hunt, and Stanford and NC State and North Carolina. I mean, he could have gone anywhere in the country, obviously. And so it came down to, I guess it was signing day that particular year. I don't think maybe he had some kind of a separate announcement. But, I mean, our offices, the phones in our offices, and I guess we had 6 or 7 lines in the network offices at that time between sales and news and front office, for 12 hours, flooded. I mean, from 7 a.m. through the show that night, you could not get through. And the salespeople were pissed, and they're like, what's going on? Why are all these people calling? And all they wanted to know was one thing: where's Todd Ellis going? And it just got to the point where people answered the phone, just went South Carolina and hung up, South Carolina and hung up over and over again. And that led to my boss's, Clark Newsom at the time, to put in an 800 number. And we started recording recruiting reports and putting it on these devices called carts that would replay. You call the 800 number, it would automatically fire that cart, and you would hear and we didn't charge anything. This was before people were making money off of it. Mm-hmm. But this was to alleviate everybody calling into our office and tying up the phone lines for days on end. And
that's crazy.
It all started with Todd Ellis, because he was the big guy at that time when it was just getting rolling.
Have you ever told him that?
He doesn't speak to me.
Well,
back in the day, I may have told him way back in the day, but we haven't had a conversation in a long time.
Well, I don't think I've had one conversation with that guy.
No, let me say, listen, Todd, listen, I've had to say it on my show. I mean, I'm not a fan of his play-by-play, but that's just me. But he's a good enough person. He's a good guy. I'm not criticizing him in any way about that. But just when it has come up in the past, I had to be honest and give my own honest appraisal as somebody who I kind of consider myself. I've never done play-by-play on a regular basis, but I consider myself kind of an aficionado of good play-by-play.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about.
I think, well, from listening to it for all these years and listening to it with a critical ear, I think I know good from not so good.
Yeah, we do too, Phil. We agree.
Kind of like talk show hosts. I know good from not so good.
No doubt.
Yeah, right.
Well, we had a contest earlier for the most handsome host of this program. Do you want to rank the best to worst?
I got to go with my man Phil. Anybody named Phil?
Right. I've got the end there. I don't.
Wait,
know
you have won both of these contests. I don't get it, Phil. He's a silent assassin.
Hey, we got to stick together, yo.
Well, number one, he doesn't have a double chin, so that's a good start.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Oh man.
And neither do you, Jamie. As I look at the four pictures, that leaves JC and me.
Phil's seen me lately, so yeah, he knows. There's nice the front end. There's no profile shots in this
thing. All right, somebody dial up Morgan. Get Morgan in here. I know he wants to be in the contest. We can't let him.
That's not fair. He's on TV.
Mike's on TV. We can't.
He's the only one of us five that puts on makeup. He's the only guy I know that wears makeup.
He's got personal groomers too. Come on.
That's right.
All right, I'm gonna go get my hair done now.
Come on, Mikey.
Give me a taco and do my hair.
I think he's actually traveling today to where's he going? Baton Rouge.
Calling some basketball. Baton Rouge, I think.
Yeah. So. Well, Phil, tomorrow at noon on the Chief Sports app for anybody that doesn't have a local market. And even if you do, it's that easy. If your phone's in your pocket, if you're in your car, you can stream it right to your car and you can listen live through our app. They'll be on the call. Does coverage begin at noon or will it begin prior to?
Noon. Noon is when we begin the broadcast. Kickoff's at 12:30. And don't forget, at halftime, it's the announcement of Mr. Football.
That's right. I was just about to ask you about that. The five finalists, Northwestern and my man Paige Wofford, who wears big baggy jeans for an adult. It's kind of strange, but I love Paige anyways. Turbo Richard, Josiah Thompson, of course, about to sign with the Gamecocks. Watson Young. First of all, Turbo Richard is going to Boston College. Watson Young is going to App State. Josiah is coming to South Carolina.
Watson flipped to Clemson.
That's right.
Yep, he flipped to Clemson. He's a Daniel kid. He'll probably be all ACC. Those Daniel kids hit.
Going to Clemson. Avery McFadden is going to go play for Sean at Georgia State. And running back Zion Dobson, the fifth finalist out of Hampton County, not the fifth, but one of the five finalists. Is he going to play anywhere? I didn't see a commitment for him. Does anybody know?
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen that either.
That school was one of the best stories in the state, though. I think they just combined it a couple of years ago, and with all the stuff that happened in Hampton County this year, it was kind of a rallying point for the community. And he's supposed to be good. I haven't heard much about him.
It used to be Wade Hampton for anybody wondering, but
it was Wade Hampton. They combined it with another school down there. I don't know which one.
Yeah, they did. And now let's see. Allendale Fairfax is still in existence.
Was it Estill?
I think you're right.
Was it Estill?
You're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it was Estill and
just one big Hampton County high
school. That's probably what they need there, to be honest. But
and I just thought with all that,
we've got him in this game. Zion's in this game.
Well, yeah, right, right. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, probably maybe a fringe guy who could. Will there be I know we got to let you go, Phil. Our Phil charges us $100 for every minute that we go past 2:00, so we got to get out of here in a second. But
just keep on rambling, Phil. Just keep on going. Let's go.
Yeah, will there be Will there be an array of college coaches on the sideline tomorrow? Do you think would be a couple that pop in?
It's still banned. It's still banned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a disservice.
Well, they were there call Michigan practice. And figure it out. Yeah.
Any coach, not a D1 FBS coaches, they can't be there. But FCS, Division II, JUCO, those coaches could be there for practice. They don't usually come to the game. They see everything Monday, Tuesday that they want to see. Now tonight, we've got the combine for juniors and seniors over at Myrtle Beach High School. They're going to do
Good.
some sprints and some drills, and it's the Joanne Langfit scouting combine, basically is what I call it. So they're bringing in some of the state, and these are invited players, juniors and seniors, rising juniors who will be seniors and then current seniors. So they'll be putting on over at Myrtle Beach High School starting about 5:00. So we'll be doing sports talk from the stadium tonight. Richie Altman, you know Richie, don't you?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Richie's going to be part of our broadcast this year because with his new role as director of the Coaches Association, Coach Early could no longer do our sideline. So Richie's going to handle that. Yeah.
Joanne Langfit. Are they related to like Jimbo Langfit and Bill Langfit and those guys used to play at Myrtle Beach? I don't know.
She passed away. It was named for her. She was a teacher or administrator over at Myrtle Beach.
Has to be the same person. Yeah.
I'll ask Scott about that.
Well, Phil, we can't thank you enough. I know that we ended up diving into some of your life story, and that's not awesome what you were brought on to do. But we first of all, we're kind of all in this together with what we're doing with Chief Sports. But we never get to have you on our show, so sometimes we're just going to take advantage to pick the brains.
Anytime. Listen, I wanted to say before I leave, I mean, congratulations to all you guys. I'm so happy that we were able to get together. But gosh, what you guys have put together is awesome. And listen, for me, I got to be honest. I'm a lifelong radio guy, and this new era of shows, streaming shows on the internet, that's something that you're teaching an old dog a new trick, more or less, because I'm devoted to the radio side of things. That's been me my whole life. Yeah. So this is new, but this is exciting. And God, you guys have just done a fantastic job. Your production elements and the way you run your show, it's fantastic.
Well, we really I thought I was going to be in radio my whole life, but then, we all know how that can go sometimes, right? So
it can go. It can throw you a curve, my brother.
We're all better off. We'll just put it that way. Phil, we have the utmost respect for you. We're always honored to work with you. Again, this will, of course, be airing throughout the state tomorrow, but also right here on the Chief Sports app at noon. So if you're out Christmas shopping, you got it right there. It's in your phone. You can take it in and listen to some great football. And they'll be on the call tomorrow from noon until about 3:30 or so up there in Myrtle Beach. And during halftime, we'll find out who the winner is of this year's Mr. Football in the state of South Carolina. Xavier McLeod won it last year. Jalen Sneed before that. Some excellent football players certainly in that group. Enjoy it, my man. Thank you for all of your time.
Phil.
Thank you, guys.
Very soon.
Have fun,
Thanks for what you do.
Thank
every
you.
night.
Happy holidays, man.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Same to y'all. Anytime you need me, just holler.